On Daf Daled, we're holding where it says Gufa. The Gemara brings back the case that was mentioned yesterday regarding a person that by mistake went and put dough into the oven, and now the question is, he wants to remove it from the oven before it bakes, so he shouldn't be over on the Isser Melacha on Shabbos. You're not over the Isser until it actually bakes. So let's see inside what happened over here. Gufa, bringing back the din itself that we learned before. Boy, Rav Bivi bar Abaye. Rav Bivi bar Abaye asked the question, Hidbig pas betaner. He attached the dough to the walls of the oven, as it was in those days that the oven was baked by attaching the dough to the walls of the oven. Hitiru leiler daisa, kaidim shiyavilu deichi of chatas, or chachamim matter the person to remove it from the walls of the oven in order that he shouldn't come to a chi of chatas, or perhaps they did not allow him. As we learned yesterday, ridia sapas, removing the bread from the oven, minatayra is no isser whatsoever. It's not any of the lamates malachas. But midrabanan there's an isser. There's a machlekes rishonim. What's the reason for the isser? Some say because it's a mundane weekday kind of a activity, so therefore they didn't want you to do this, or because once you're starting to patchka in the oven, you may come to bake as well. So the question is, did they leave their gzeira, their isser, in place, even when it's going to cause the person to come to be over the isser of afiyah, of baking on Shabbos? Even though initially he's the one that put the bread into the oven, but now he has a chance to take it out. So did they remove their isser and allow him to take it out or not? That's the shaila. Amalei Ravacha bar Abaye leRavina. So Ravacha bar Abaye says to Ravina, Hey chidami. Let's examine this question. What exactly is the case over here? The language that was used in the question was, are we going to allow him to avoid a chi of chatas? When does chi of chatas come? When a person does something b'shoigig, which means either he's not aware it's Shabbos today, or he's not aware that what he did is a malacha. So he's not even aware of anything. So the question is, if so, what's the application of this question? Are we dealing with a person that placed the bread into the oven by mistake? B'shoigig, he's not aware that it's Shabbos, or it's not aware that what he did is aser, and he didn't remember that what he did is wrong. So then lamani tiru. Who is that individual that we're asking, may he take it out of the oven? He's doing it b'shoigig. He doesn't realize that he did anything wrong. So who is the heta for to take it out of the oven? Ve'elolav. So what are you going to say? What happened? He woke up in the morning. He didn't realize it's Shabbos. He puts the bread into the oven, or the dough into the oven, and then all of a sudden he remembers, it's Shabbos today. So then he remembered that he wants to take it out of the oven. That's probably the case. But if that's so, mi mechayev? Would he be chayev a karban chatos? In a case where before the malacha is done, he remembered it's Shabbos? We learned in a Mishnah, this is later over here in Shabbos, Kol chayav chatois, any case where a person is chayav a chatos, einon chayavin, you're not chayav for the karban chatos, the entire duration of the Aveda, he has to be in a state of a shogeg, from the beginning till the end. Then he's chayav on a karban chatos. But if the beginning of the Aveda was done b'shogeg, and at the end he reminded himself and it was done b'mezid, so then there's no chatos. So once he reminded himself it's Shabbos, so then he's not going to be chayav on a karban chatos anyways. So even if he takes it out, there's no karban chatos. So what's the even if he leaves it in the oven, there's no karban chatos. A chatos is only if he's a shogeg throughout. So the question of the Gemara is b'manavshach. If he's taka shogeg from the beginning when he placed it into the oven until it finishes baking, so he's a shogeg. He doesn't know. He doesn't want to take it out because he doesn't know he did anything wrong. Elamai, he reminded himself. If he reminded himself, so there's no karban chatos.
So what does he do?
Nothing. There's no kapara. If there's no karban chatos.
Because only half malacha.
Half of the malacha was there's a full malacha, but only half of it was done b'shogeg. The other half was done b'mezid. You could only bring a karban chatos to be mechaper for what you did if the entire duration of the malacha was a shogeg. If half was shogeg, half was mezid, there's no karban chatos.
He's
Pater from a chatos, and pater from skila as well. Can't give him skila because half was shogeg. You can't give him a chatos because half was mezid.
But when he put it in, it was b'shogeg. If he reminds himself and he leaves it in, so he did a malacha. So
the isser is going to be there. Good point. So l'chayra, what you're saying is that let us allow him to take it out to avoid being over on the Isser before it bakes, to avoid the Isser, that he shouldn't come to a Isser of Malah. Well, that's a different story, okay? The Isser of Shabbos, that's a good question. Okay, we'll see in the Hemshech of the Gemara. But at this point, the Gemara is going back to the Lashon that Rav Bivi Bar Abai said, which was Chiyuv Chatos. Are we allowing him to take it out in order not to be Chayav Chatos? So the Gemara says, if that's the Pshat, then there's no room for any question here. Rather, what's the Pshat? B'mezid. The case over here is that he put it into the oven b'mezid. And now the question is, he's the one to do tshuva. He put it in b'mezid. He was so hungry, he wanted to bake the bread. And then after he put it in, he realized, it's Fard Shabbos. It doesn't pay to do this. I'm going to be over. I'm going to get skila b'mezid just for the taiva of some bread to be chayiv skila. So which means that there were Eidim and Hasra present. He got the warning, and there was witnesses there before he put it in. In order to be chayiv skila. Ela b'mezid. So kaidim shiyava. So if so, the question is, why is Rav Bivi Bar Abai saying chiyav chatas? Kaidim shiyava lidei is a skila mi bayalei. It should have said skila, not chatas. The language we used before was chatas. Amar Rav Shila. So Rav Shila answers, la'olam b'shoigig. The case over here is b'shoigig, that he put it into the oven b'shoigig, and he's b'shoigig throughout all. He put it into the oven, and then he went out of the house.
So there was no warning before?
No warning b'shoigig, and what we're talking about is a chi of chatos. L'mani tiru. So if he's a shoigig and he's unaware of what happened, so who are we being matter to take it out? La'chedim. Somebody else walks into the kitchen, he left. Someone else walks into the kitchen, it's Shabbos, and sees that somebody forgot it's Shabbos today and put the bread into the oven and says, "Oh, the Bainish Shalaylam." Someone put the bread into the oven on Shabbos. I better take it out before it bakes to save him from a Chiyuv Chatas. So one Jew wants to save another Jew from being Machal Shabbos, from a Chiyuv Chatas. That's the question. But he himself, is unaware. He went out to work. He put the bread into the oven. He forgot it's Shabbos and he left. He went to shul, wherever. No, maybe his wife got up, she smelled that something's baking and she came running. What's going on? Shabbos, who's baking on Shabbos? Sagt the Gemara, Maskef lo Rav Sheishes. Rav Sheishes asks on this interpretation, do we ever say that one Yid is allowed to sin, in this case, to be over Isma D'Rabbanan and take it out of the oven, only for the benefit of the person that placed it into the oven to save him from a Chiyuv Chatas? We never allow one Yid to do an Aveira in order to save another Yid from a Chiyuv Chatas. So how can we apply, what would be the question over here to allow someone else to do this? Over here?
Yeah.
Chiyuv Chatas. We're talking about a Sheigig, right? We're going back to the case of Sheigig. So for one person to do an Aveira just to save the other person of a Chiyuv Chatas, how is that allowed? So there's a big discussion about this. There's a long Taisus on this. And Taisus actually brings from other cases where we do find that you allow one individual to do a lighter Aveda in order to save another Yid from a more harsher Aveda. There are Taisus brings a case from the Gemara in Eidevin and a case in the Gemara in Gittin. So there's a few things Taisus says. The first pshat Taisus says is, over here, you're saving him from the carbon chatas. But as far as the act of the Aveda itself is concerned, the act of the Aveda was done. He placed the bread into the oven. Let's go back to what happened over here. There are two parts to this malacha. Malacha of Afiyah, Bishul, is unique. It's different than other malachas of Shabbos. There's the act, placing it into the oven, but you're not over yet until the bread is baked, whatever amount it has to be baked, Kamachel ben Drusoy, whatever it is, a certain half-baked at least, then the malacha should be done. So this is a third or a half, it's a machlek Soshenim.
It belongs here. You see it's a Shabbos, which is two parts of the malacha. Interesting. Okay, so over here as well, this is a kind of malacha. There's the act of the malacha, but even when you remove your hands, and the act of the malacha, as far as the action is concerned, is completely done, but still, there's a process of the baking that you're not over until that baking takes place. So Taisus over here says, in a case where the act of the malacha was not done yet, there are certain exceptions where one Yid may do a light Aveda in order to save another Yid from doing a more Chomer Dega Aveda, where the act of the Aveda wasn't done yet. Here, the act of the Aveda was done. We're trying to save him from the Chiyuv Chatas, from the Einish of the Chiyuv Chatas. That's what we're trying to save him from. In this case, the Gemara says, I will not say to Reuven
that he should be over even a Isma de Rabbanan to save Shimon from a Chi of Chatos because the act of the Aveda was done already. That's the first pshat that Taisa says here. And the Rebbe in a Sikha brings this inyan, and the Rebbe is medayik that if you look into the Lashon of Rashi, Rashi writes in his short few words and makes it clear that he holds of this pshat of Taisvis. Look for a moment into the Rashi. V'chi oimrim loy la'adam chatei. V'chi oimrim loy la'adam tzei v'chatei isser kal. Do we tell a person, go and do a light Aveda? In this case, it's a Isma de Rabbanon. Kidei shalei yischayev chavercha oynish chomer. In order that your friend should not be chayiv in a oynish chomer. So the Rebbe points out, why does Rashi say, Yischayev chavercha oynish chomer? Why not save your friend from a harsh Aveda? Rashi is not talking about saving your friend from the Aveda. The act of the Aveda was done already. He placed the bread into the oven. At this point, it's only about saving him from the actual baking that will bring him to the oynish chomer of the Chi of Chatos. But the Maisa Aveda was done already. That's the diak of the Rebbe in this Rashi. And then there's another thing Taisus brings over here. There's a story the Gemara says in a case where they needed a minion. Didn't we learn this also in Brachas? I believe we learned this in Brachas as well already, yes. We need a minion. They needed a minion, and what do? They freed a slave, an Evet Kanani, in order to be mashlim for the 10th for the minion. The Gemara there actually discussed whether they had only 8 or they had 9 people. I believe the Gemara there in the end says that they had 8 people. And then they freed the Eved, and then one Evet Kanani they were mitzaref even without. What was the story? One they totally freed, and the other one they were mitzaref without freeing him, or maybe it was with a cotton. I don't remember the exact case. But the point is, they freed an Evet Kanani to be mashlim a minyan. Now, freeing an Evet Kanani is being over on a mitzvah saseh. La'olam behem ta'avaydu. Once you own an Evet Kanani, you're supposed to keep him as an Evet Kanani and pass him down to the next generation forever. La'olam behem ta'avaydu. So freeing an Evet Kanani is being over on a mitzvah saseh for the purpose of a minyan, for others that need a minyan. So how is one person freeing an Evet Kanani for other people that need a minyan? So Taisva says, mitzvah de rabim shani. Mitzvah rabim shani, mitzvah de rabim shani. For the purpose of a rabim, you could be over the mitzvah saseh for the minyan. So that's another exception to the rule. A third exception to this rule is what the Alter Rebbe also brings to Shulchan Aruch. This whole thing is quoted in the Alter Rebbe and Shulchan Aruch as well. In Siman Shin Vav Shin Zayin, I believe the Alter Rebbe brings this halacha when you get to Shabbos. If someone placed bread into the oven, the Alter Rebbe there says if he placed bread into the oven, the Alter Rebbe calls him a pesheya. The reason why you're not mechuyev to take it out of the oven and save him from a chi of chatos or chi of skila is because he's a pesheya, and that includes whether he was a mazid, whether he was a shegig. It's also referred to as a pesheya in the sense that there's some level of negligence involved in this. By forgetting that it's Shabbos, not having the awareness. So therefore, you're not allowed to, you're not mechuyev, I'm not mechuyev to save another person which has some degree of pshia involved. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, and this is brought from the Rishonim, that what happens if there's a case of a girl, this is the case the way it's brought in the Rishonim, that Amal, such a thing was more common to happen. A girl was captured and she was being taken by Goyim to convert her, to take her to convert her to whatever, Christianity, whatever it is. So her life is not in danger. We know on Shabbos when another person's life is in danger, of course, Bekuch Nefashis is Teichu Shabbos. But what happens if you have a case of an individual, a Yid, that's being taken away and their Yiddishkeit is in danger? Not their life is in danger, but their Yiddishkeit is in danger. They're going to force it to be Ovid Avodah Zarah, whatever it is. Are you allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to go and save her from this situation? So some argue and say that falls under the category of Ein Oin Brim La'adam Chatei B'Shvil Sheyiskech Havercha. I'm not allowed to be Mechal Shabbos to save not her life, but to save her from being over an Aveda. But the Alter Rebbe says, no, that doesn't apply here. Because over here, she's being taken away by force and there's no pshia involved. She's not happening by choice, or even it's not even a shegig either. It's an absolute einus where she's being taken by force. In such a case, you're mechuyev to be mechal Shabbos and go and save her life. So in any situation today, when you're in Eretz Yisrael, they have that. It's more common. Unfortunately, we have missionaries that are doing all kinds of things. They make these events on Shabbos and they draw Yidden in. There are certain cases, you have to ask a Rav obviously, where you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos in order to prevent a person of joining these kind of programs and these kinds of things. In a case where it's an Einus, where it has to be a case of an Einus.
There was a nice Mechal Talmud.
Oh, the famous story where he
was on Shabbos.
Yeah, he saved the Talmidim from the orphanage, correct?
The Indian of a shegig is being talking
Yeah.
about the Rebbe can say such thing because it's basic chassidus.
It says that every shegig is a pshia. Yeah. No, but the very fact that you, even up Pinigla, the very fact that you bring a carbon chatos means that there's something that the person has to bring a kapara for. It's not an einis gomer. Okay, so that's the Gemara's question. We cannot say that the case over here is that one person put the bread into the oven and the other person is removing it to save him from the Chiyuv Chatas, because we never allow one person, or in this case at least, we don't allow one person to save the other from the Chiyuv Chatas. So therefore the Gemara says, Elam Ravashi Lo'elam b'mezid. The Kaser has to be a mezid. And we have to change the wording of the Iboya. Kaidim Sheyaveh Lidei Issa Skila. This is before you come to an Issa Skila. Ravacha Berei de Rava, Mastilo Behedye. Ravacha, the son of Rava, said this clearly as a statement. Omer Rav Bivi bar Abaye. He didn't say it as a question, but as a statement. Rav Bivi bar Abaye said, and this is the final halacha, Hidbik pas petana. One individual put bread into the oven on Shabbos. It was done b'mezid. Hitiru loy l'daisa. They allowed him to remove that bread from the oven. Kaidim sheyaveh lidei issa skila. Before he comes to the issa skila. So another point here that Taisus points out before we go on to the next sugya, the Gemara didn't only change from chatos to skila, it changed another detail. It says iser, if you're changing from chatos to skila, that's changing to mezid. But another thing is the Gemara says iser. It doesn't say chiyav skila, it says iser skila. Why does it say only iser skila? So Taisus says ultimately, if the reason why he's not removing the bread from the oven on Shabbos, he's standing there, he has a hitter tshuva. He wants to remove the bread. And we tell him, no, the Chachamim don't allow you. You can't remove the bread from the oven. So if the only reason he's not removing it from the oven is because Chachamim don't allow him to, we can't be Mechayiv him skila. He's saying, look, I wanted to remove the bread from the oven. I made a mistake, I was very foolish, b'mezid I put it into the oven, but immediately I had a hitter tshuva, I wanted to take it out, the Chachamim didn't allow me. So he's not going to be chayiv an actual chiyav skila. So therefore it's only an isser skila. That's why the Gemara changes the lashon to isser skila. That's what Taisus says over here. Okay, now we go back to the Mishnah. What did we learn in the Mishnah? The ani.
Based on this, if someone did such a thing and there was a circumstance that he couldn't take it out.
What says the
Let's say
there was an inus that he wasn't
out.
able to take it out. I'm not sure if what the halacha is in that case. I'm not sure. Okay, good question. Perhaps it's the same idea. Over here it's mamish the chachomim that are commanding him, do not take it out. So how could we give him a skila? The fact that it's chilase b'pshia v'seifa ba'inus, perhaps this also applies. I don't know. So the case in the Mishnah was constantly, all the cases, 8 cases, it's all between 2 individuals, the hand of the ani and the hand of the balabayis. And something is going from one domain to another, but not really directly into the Rishus HaYachid or the Rishus HaRabim, but it's going from one hand to the other hand. So the Gemara has a question on this. Amai chayev? Why in any of these cases would you be chayev for the isser of haitzah? We know it as an established fact that for the malacha of haitzah, which begins with an akira, lifting it off, and it ends with a hanacha, placing it down, it has to be lifted and placed down on a chashav space of dalid al dalid tfachim. And Rashi here explains, if it's not in a space of dalid al dalid tfachim, Rashi says it has to be choshuv. It has to be, when you have something, bepashtus, if you have an item that's on a very, very small space, less than 4 by 4 tfachim, it's not settled there. It's very easy that it should fall from that place. It's not settled in that place for a long time. It's going to fall off eventually, easily. If you have a space that's 4 by 4 tfachim, it's settled down there. Same thing when you place it down. So you're uprooting it from a place that's not daled al daled tvachim, it wasn't really settled down properly. And when you place it down on a space that's not daled al daled tvachim, the hanach is also sort of temporary. It's not a large enough space that it's going to remain there for a long period of time. So to have the malachah done, to lift it up from a permanent place where it was settled down, and put it down on a permanent place, it has to be 4 by 4 tvachim. So a hand of a person is not 4 by 4 tvachim. So then how is the malach in our Mishnah being done from one hand to another hand, and the Mishnah says Yechayev? So Rabbi responds and says, we can find an opinion that holds that you do not need 4 by 4 tvachim. And there's actually an opinion that the Gemara will now suggest that you don't even need a regular akira and hanacha altogether. Let's see. What is this? Homani, who's this opinion? Rabbi Akiva. This follows Rabbi Akiva's opinion. The Omar Rabbi Akiva said, Loi ba'inon makayim arba al arba, that you do not need a space of 4 by 4 tvachim for the malacha to be a malacha.
Where do we see Rabbi Akiva's opinion? The Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, what happens if a person throws an item from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid? But it was through a Rishus HaRabim. Let's say there's one porch, and then another porch across the street, and there's a Rishus HaRabim in between. And you're throwing something to your neighbor through the Rishus HaRabim, from one porch to another porch. So now it went through the Rishus HaRabim, but it never landed in the Rishus HaRabim. Just went through the airspace of the Rishus HaRabim. So l'chayri, you didn't do the malacha. The malacha is to take from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim. This began from the Rishus HaYachid and ended in the Rishus HaYachid. We'll see about that in a moment. So what's the halacha? Rabbi Akiva mechayev. Rabbi Akiva says you're chayev. Chachamim paitrim. Chachamim say you potter. It only flew through the airspace of the Rishus HaRabim, but it never landed there. Rabbi Akiva Sava, Rabbi Akiva's chiddush is, Rabbi Akiva says, Amrino, we say as follows, Kluta kemi shahuncha damya. Once it enters into the airspace, it's as if it has landed over there. The very entry into the airspace of Rishus HaRabim, it's sort of absorbed and it's as if it's there, and then it was there in the Rishus HaRabim, so you're chayav for that malacha, and then it went into the other Rishus HaYachid. We'll get to the 10 Tvachim in a moment. The Gemara is going to discuss that. But right now, let's ignore the 10 Tvachim for a moment. But the point is, the 10 Tvachim is very significant. And the reason why it's significant is because our Rishus HaRabim only extends up to 10 Tvachim. Above 10 Tvachim, there's no Rishus HaRabim. 10 Tvachim. Yeah? Lamay Lamiyud. So, the point over here is that there's a concept of kluta kemi shehuncha. Very interesting concept. That when it kluta, when it gets kolut, when it gets absorbed, when it comes in, to the, what's the exact word they give over there for kluta?
Something contained.
Contained. When it's contained in the rishus, when it enters and it's contained in the rishus, it's as if it's mhuncha, as if the hanacha was done. Now, this chiddush of Rabbi Akiva does not apply to all cases. It's only when it's flying in and enters into the airspace of the rishus. Okay, so Tosfos over here points out when the chayfetz is in someone's hand, then there's no din of kluta kemi shehuncha. Going back to our Mishnah, one of the cases in our Mishnah was the ani stretched his hand into the Rishus HaYachid, the balabayis placed something into his hand, and then the ani removed his hand. The ani is potter. He didn't do a full malacha. He didn't do the akira. The balabais did the akira. Why don't we say that while the ani's hand wasn't a Rishus HaYachid, it's kemi shehuncha, because it's contained in that domain, so it's kemi shehuncha, then he pulls his hand out, so he did an akira and a hanacha. So Tosfos says, while the chayfetz is in the hand of the ani, it's not in the Rishus HaYachid, there's no kluta kemi shehuncha. When it's flying in the airspace and there's nothing between the item and the ground, then I say kluta kemi shehuncha. Some Mefarshim, there's a lengthy discussion about this in Achrayim. This concept is a very abstract concept, kluta kemi shehuncha. Some Achrayim say that the pshat of this is that the Torah considers what's flying in the airspace to be as if it's on the ground. So if your hand is in between, even if it's in that domain, but your hand is between the item and the ground, so it can't be kemi shehuncha. That's only if there's nothing in between. If there's something in between, it's not kemi shehuncha. That's one interpretation. There's other interpretations as well. But the point is, Rabbi Akiva is mechadish kluta kemi shehuncha. He certainly doesn't hold of the requirement of having a space of dalet al dalet for a akira and a hanacha. If even entering into the airspace could qualify for a hanacha or an akira, for sure you don't need a space of dalet al dalet. That's the Gemara's answer. But Rabbanan's opinion is, lo yamrinan kaluta kemi shehuncha damya. We do not say that if it's contained in that domain, that it's as if it's settled in that domain, and therefore you're going to be potter. So the source, the opinion of our Mishnah follows Rabbi Akiva. Fragt the Gemara, lemeimre, shall we say the pshita leila Rabbe, that it was clear to Rabbe the bekluta kemi shehuncha damya, that the argument of Rabbi Akiva and the Rabbanon was taka regarding this subject of kluta kemi shehuncha. Ubetoich hasara pligi, and their argument is below 10 tvachim. So again, what's the significance of below 10 tvachim? Then the item entered into the Rishus HaRabim. If you throw it from your porch to another porch and it's above 10 tvachim, so then it's above, it's not in Rishus HaRabim. It went through a makim petur, exactly. So there's nothing to talk about. It's a whole different story. So what would be the other way to explain this machlekes? So the Gemara brings that Rabba had a suffix. How to explain this machlokes? We know that Rabba had the following suffix. The boy Rabba lamata ma'asara pligi is the argument in a case where you threw it from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, and it passed through the ear space of the Rishus HaRabban below 10 Tvachim. Ubaha pligi, and this is what the argument is about. The Rabbi Akiva savar klutika mishahon chadamya. Like we explained before, Rabbi Akiva says once it's contained in the airspace, it's as if it landed there, and therefore yechayev. V'Rabbanan savri, and Rabbanan's opinion is lo yamrina klutika mishahon chadamya. We do not apply this concept of klutika mishahoncha. Aval lemaila me'asara. If this is an item that flew through the airspace above 10 tfachim, divrei hakol pater. Everybody would agree that you're pater in such a case. It's above 10 tfachim. It didn't go through the Rishus HaRabim. Ude kula alma. Now the Gemara adds another detail. So before I read it inside, this is a unique concept. When the Yidden were in the Mishkan, how did they move the Kroshim from one location to another? With the wagons. They had the wagons that held the Kroshim. The wagons were lined up one next to the other, and they would hand over the wagons one to the other to bring it to the Mishkan when they would have to put up the Mishkan. Right? So they would...
From one wagon to the other wagon.
Correct. Moishit. The Gemara will call it over here Moishit. Moishit means they would hand over. The wagons were lined up near each other, and they would hand over the wagons from one wagon to the next wagon, the kroshim that is, sorry. They would hand over the kroshim,
laying on a wagon,
and then they would move it over until they would bring it to the Mishkan. Correct. That's the idea of Moishit. Okay? So now these wagons were taller than 10 tvachim. When they would hand over the kroshim from one wagon to another wagon, so they would hand it over above 10 tvachim. From here we learn out that if you hand over an item from one Rishus HaYachid to the other Rishus HaYachid, and there's a Rishus HaRabim in between, if you handed it over with that Rishus HaRabim in between above 10 Tvachim, there is a Chiyuv, there's a Isser, it's a Toilda of Malachas Haitzah, because this is exactly the way it was done in the Mishkan. Even though L'chayre 10 Tvachim is a Makim P'tur, and it didn't even go through a Rishus HaRabim, but since this is exactly the way it was done in the Mishkan, so therefore this is a Toilda of the Malacha of Haitzah.
The wagon is on the ground.
No, the wagon was high enough, 10 tvachim high.
Well,
The wheels of the wagon. The wagons were tall enough that it was 10 tvachim off the ground.
But it's not considered one item?
No.
Wheels and wagon, I mean, it's all...
It's off the ground. The wheels and the height of the wagon was 10 tvachim. The platform of the wagon. The platform of the wagon is 10 tvachim off the ground. And they would hand over the kroshim from one wagon to another wagon with the Rishus HaRabim in between. And that's 10 tvachim. Then 10 tvachim above the ground. Right?
And what about if they were holding the wagon next to each other and there was no space in between?
No, but there was though. Where there was space in between, the way they traveled, there wasn't mamish together. And they would hand it over. So, but this is only if it's 10. So this is a very interesting thing. This whole Toilda of Moishit is going from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid with a space of a Rishus HaRabim in between, but specifically above 10 Tvachim and not below 10 Tvachim. Why? Because that's exactly the way it was done in the Mishkan. But here's the thing, these kroshim were extremely heavy. They handed over the kroshim from one wagon to the other. They certainly didn't throw these kroshim. Even Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't lift these kroshim, right? It says that when you had to put up the kroshim, the Eibush had to help him to do it. They didn't throw kroshim from one wagon to another. Impossible.
They didn't wheel it?
Huh?
They didn't like put on a wagon and then schlep the wagon from...
No. This is what the Gemara says. This is the way it was done. They would hand over the kroshim, but they certainly didn't throw it. The question now is, do we say that we have to it's exactly the way it was by the Mishkan? Since by the Mishkan they handed over the kroshim from one wagon to another, the malacha, the toilda is only when they handed it over, not throwing the kroshim. Or do we say the malacha is moishit, but we could also say and apply the same thing by zayrik? If you throw from one Rishus HaYachid to another Rishus HaYachid, and there is a Rishus HaRabim in between, even if you throw it, the same thing applies. We compare zayrik to moishit. They hand it over. But if you throw, it's a smaller item, and you can throw it, the same thing would apply. That's the question here. So let's look inside the Lashon of the Gemara. Udekula alma, according to this interpretation of Rabbah, everybody would agree, Loi alfinon zayrik mi moishit. We can't compare throwing an item to handing over an item. So therefore, above 10 tvachim, if you throw an item above 10 tvachim, you'd be totally potter. Because in the Mishkan, the way it was done was handing over, not throwing. But then Rabbi said there's perhaps another way how to interpret this machlokes here. L'mayla miyud pligi. Maybe their argument is in a case where you threw something from one Rishus Yachid to another Rishus Yachid, and it was above 10 Tvachim, and here there's an argument. To Bahal Pligi, and this is what the argument is about. The Rabbi Akiva's opinion is Yalfin and Zaydik b'Meishit, that you learn out Zaydik from Meishit. Just like in the Mishkan, when you handed over the Krashim, so too when you throw from one Rishus Yachid to another Rishus Yachid with the Rishus Rabbim in between, above 10 Tvachim, we compare throwing to handing over, and Yechayev. But Rabban's opinion is Lo Yalfina Zaydik min Meishit. We don't compare throwing to handing over. Aval amata masara, but below 10 tfachim, divrei hakol chayev. Everybody would agree that Yechayev, my timer, why? Amrinan kluta kemishon chadamya. Because we apply the rule of kluta kemishon chadamya. So before in the Gemara we were saying that Rabbi said only Rabbi Akiva held kluta kemishon chadamya. The Rabbanan don't hold of Kluta Kemishahoncha. But right now over here we see that Rabbi himself had a suffix about this. And according to the second interpretation of Rabbi, everybody agrees to Kluta Kemishahoncha. The Machlokes is only been to get to Lamayla Ma'asara. So the Gemara says, this is not a problem. Basa di Ibaya. After Rabbi had this Ibaya, how to interpret this Machlokes, Hadariv Shetelei. Later he was Paishat his Ibaya. The Sava Rabbi Akiva Kluta Kemishon Chadamya, that only Rabbi Akiva holds the rule of Kluta Kemishon Chadamya and not the Rabbanan, and they're arguing about below 10 Tfachim. So this again, we're going back to the suggestion of the Gemara when it says in our Mishnah that you don't need a Dalet al Dalet. What are we talking about? It's Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Rabbi Akiva holds that even when it enters into the airspace, it's like it's landed, it's like Kemishon Chadamya, so you don't need a Dalet al Dalet.
So he's throwing within 10 Tfachim?
Yes, below 10 Tfachim. So the Gemara now questions is, wait a minute. Maybe Rabbi Akiva was only saying that for Hanacha, you don't need 4x4 Tvachim. Kluta Kemishahoncha, when it enters into the airspace, it's as if it landed on 4 Tvachim. You don't need any 4 Tvachim for the Hanacha. But Ha'akira Baya, maybe when you lift the chayfetz off the ground, the malacha is only if you lift it off the ground of a space which is 4 Tvachim. And the basis of the Gemara's question over here is, did Rabbi Akiva say Yechayev twice? If you apply the rule of Kluta Kemishoncha, why would Rabbi Akiva not say that Yechayev twice? An item that was thrown from one Rishus Yachid to another Rishus Yachid with the Rishus Rabbim in between, so it passed through the Rishus Rabbim, it's as if it landed in the Rishus Rabbim, and then it got uprooted from the Rishus Rabbim and entered into the second Rishus Yachid. So you have 2 malachas. It entered into the Rishus Rabbim, and then it left the Rishus Rabbim into another Rishus Yachid. Yechayev twice. If there was it's two Yisurim, l'chayre, you wouldn't be chayev twice a kar mechatas if it's one helam. But l'chayre, it's 2 malachas. Later, the Gemara will say, yeah. Elam Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef says, Hamani Rebbe. Rather, there's another opinion. Our Mishnah is going according to the opinion of Rebbe. Rebbe holds you don't need 4x4 amas, or 4x4 tfachim, that is, when you place it down, or even when you uproot it as well. Hi Rebbe, where's Rebbe? Ilay Maha Rebbe, is it the following Braisa, where Rebbe is quoted? The Tanya, the Braisa says as follows: Zorak, you threw an item, v'nochal gabi ziz kol shuhu, and it landed on some kind of a protrusion, which is kol shuhu. Doesn't have a 4x4 tfachim.
3 branches.
That's what the Gemara is about to say. Rebbe mechayev. Rebbe says you'll be chayev. So you clearly see l'chayre that Rebbe holds it doesn't need 4x4 tfachim. The Chachamim paitre. Chachamim say that you pater. So the Gemara says no, this is not a good source. Hasam over there, that's a different reason. Over there, the reason why Rebbe holds Yechayev kedabein lemeim lekaman. This is going to be explained in the Gemara later. Kedabaya, as Abaya explains it. Omar Abaya, hacha. Over there, what's the case? Be'ilan ha'aymed b'rishus hayachid. It's talking about a tree. The trunk of the tree is in the rishus hayachid. V'noifay noitel rishus harabim. The branches of the tree go out into the rishus harabim. V'zarak. You threw an item from the rishus harabim. V'noch anoifay. And it landed on a branch of the tree. The Rebbe Sava, Rebbe's opinion is, Amrina, and what we say is, Shadi noifay basar ikrai. The branches, the status of the branches follows the trunk of the tree. If the trunk of the tree is a Rishus HaYachid, even the branches that are hanging over into the Rishus HaRabim have a halacha of a Rishus HaYachid. And therefore, if you pick up an item in a Rishus HaRabim and you throw it up and it lands on a branch on the tree, and that branch is hanging into the Rishus HaRabim below 10 Tvachim, but still, because the trunk of the tree, the base of the tree is in the Rishus HaYachid, it has a din of a Rishus HaYachid. That's what Rebbe's Chiddush is. Okay, that the knife goes after the Iker. V'Rabbanan Savi, Rabbanan's opinion is, the branches don't follow the trunk of the tree. The trunk of the tree is in one Rishus, the branches are on another Rishus. The branches, whatever the Rishus they're in, that's their status. So just as that is true regarding the Rishus of the tree, the same is also true regarding the requirement of 4x4 Tvachim. If the trunk of the tree is 4x4 Tvachim, so then the branches that are not 4x4 Tvachim also have the same status of 4x4 Tvachim, just like the trunk of the tree itself. That was the Chiddush of Rebbe over here. But Rebbe, you don't have a source from here that Rebbe meant to say that you don't need 4x4 Tvachim. Ella, the Gemara brings another source for Rebbe's opinion. Ha Rebbe. This is the source of Rebbe's opinion. The Tanya we learned in Abraise, Zorak Rishus HaRabim, Rishus HaRabim. Another case, a person is throwing from one Rishus HaRabim to another Rishus HaRabim, or Rishus HaYachid be'emtza. Over here, the case is that it went through a Rishus HaYachid. He's going from one highway to another highway, from one Rishus HaRabim to another Rishus HaRabim, and there's a Rishus HaYachid in between. Rebbe mechayev v'chachamim paitrim. Rebbe says he's chayev, and chachamim say he's pater. And v'amar Rav Yudah amar Shmuel mechayev hoya Rebbe shtayim. Rebbe said in this case you chayev twice. Achas mishum meitzah, v'achas mishum achnasa. When it flies through the Rishus HaYachid, you chayiv twice because it went from the Rishus HaRabim to the Rishus HaYachid, and then again from the Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim. So you chayiv twice. So Alma, what do we see from here? Over here we clearly see Rebbe's opinion. You don't need not an akira, not a hanacha. Once for a hachnasa, you went from Rishus HaRabim to the Rishus HaYachid, and again from Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim.
You should say takachnasa first, and then it's
okay, say that. Again?
There's only one chatas.
Possibly. Okay, if there was a helam in between, maybe it'll be okay. Maybe there's a case how it could be chayiv twice. But the point is, he did two malachas, hachnasa and eitzah. Yeah, so you don't need not an akira, not a hanocha on a makim of dalal al dalit. So the Gemara says, no, this as well is not a raya to our case. Why not? Rav and Shmuel both said, the case over here is that the item flew through a Rishus HaYachid that had a roof on top, above it. And here there's a new rule we apply. Beisa keman demalya damya. Anything that flies under a roof, it's as if that space that it flew under is filled with items, Rashi says. Look, Rashi says, Dover sasim kol tzad have a kamole chafetzim ad gagoy. It's as if it's a space filled until the roof, and whatever flies through, it's as if it landed. Similar concept to kluta kamishoncha, but we're taking it to a further, another kind of application. When anything flies through a space that's below a roof, it's as if it landed there. Beisa command the mal yadamya. But if there's no roof, then we don't apply this rule. Over here as well, maybe in our Mishnah, when the item was placed in the hand of the ani in the Rishus HaRabim, maybe there's also a roof above the Rishus HaRabim. Rishus HaRabim, Mekura, Michayev, would a person be chayev if there's a roof above the Rishus HaRabim? V'amar Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav, Hamav v'chefetz zal damas b'Rishus HaRabim, Mekura, potter. If you move an item 4 amas in Rishus HaRabim, which you're not allowed, you're potter because it has a roof above it. L'fisha ein daime ledigle midbar. Because it's not similar to when the Yidden travel in the midbar. The Yidden travel in the midbar, there was no roof above them. So therefore, the Rishus HaRabim is only a Rishus HaRabim if there's no roof. So therefore, our Mishnah can't be compared to this case of Rebbe. Rebbe was speaking in a case where there's a roof. Maybe you could ask in the midbar there was a roof. They had the Ananiya covered above them, didn't they? So there was a roof. So we'll discuss that in Mitzvah when we come to the next blot on the Avov. Okay. Atkan, Afreilichem Purim to everyone present, to all the viewers, Afreilichem Purim.